Hello, and welcome to Talks on Docs, a documentary review podcast where the co-hosts and guests discuss, review, and give recommendations on any and all types of documentaries. Episode 34, a special episode for documentaries associated to 9/11. On Amazon Prime, Children of 9/11. On Amazon Prime, From Philadelphia to Fallujah. And on Docurama, The Woman Who Wasn't There. Docurama is a streaming service channel which can easily be downloaded or accessed through streaming service apps such as Amazon Prime, Tubi, Roku, and Pluto TV. See the show notes for further information. Hello, and welcome to Talks on Docs. We're your co-hosts. I am Sturdy.
I'm HB. And I'm Sean.
All right, guys, we're going to get back to our regular form, our original form of us doing 3 documentaries. I'm very thankful that we've gotten back to this. I'm sure you guys are more than thankful to not having to be doing another interview, right, you guys?
Definitely.
Yeah, the interviews were fun, but it's nice to get back to our regular programming.
Yeah, we actually had a lot of really good interviews. I really liked a lot of them. Actually, I liked all of them. They were all fun. You guys haven't listened to the last one that we did, that I did?
Not yet.
No?
No, not yet.
Yeah, that one was really informational for me. I learned a lot about
ranked voting.
Yeah, ranked choice voting. Have you guys ever even heard of that?
No, it seemed interesting in one way, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for that.
Listen to the podcast, and you guys will learn a lot about it. It was really informative about it, and I, like I said, learned a lot from him about how that system of voting works. And it's something that they've been using for a long time, like in Ireland and stuff. And I think he said New Zealand and Australia, they've been using that type of system. Maine just went to it statewide, and he's trying to push it. And there's cities out there that already do it, like San Francisco does it, where it's ranked choice voting.
San Francisco does a lot of things.
Yeah.
There's not much about San Fran I'm impressed with anymore.
But basically what it is like, so when you go to vote, you like rank the
candidates.
Yeah, the candidates. Yeah. So you have like 6 candidates and you rank them 1 through 6. And then everybody's cards come together, and you'd have to watch it. I'm not going to be able to sit here and explain it and have it make any sense, but have I done iTunes reviews with you guys?
Not lately.
I don't know that we talked about any.
Yeah, we got a lot, actually. A lot of the directors we've talked to. I'll read a couple of them here just to kind of give respect back and give thanks, because they all gave us great reviews, 5-star reviews and such. The last one, 5-star review, great show, check them out, by Kerrigan AZ, or R. Kerrigan AZ. Actually, this was not one of the directors. I think this is actually one of our just general listeners. He goes on to say, I look for podcast shows consistently for my long trips for work, and I came across Talks on Docs, and I have to say I really appreciate a show that has great information and great guest speakers, and that's what this podcast has in spades. You have definitely piqued my interest in a ton of different documentaries, so thank you for your time and effort on this show. Cheers, Ryan.
Cheers to you, Ryan. Thank you.
Originally, when I saw Cheers, I was thinking Australia, but then it has AZ, so I'm thinking maybe I don't know. Next one, Talks on Docs, 5-star, King Mitzvah. And I believe this one is going to be from Cap. Sturdy and his co-hosts are sensational. We are grateful they invited us on the show to discuss our documentary film, The Ringmaster. It is evident in a way that they conducted their interviews that they genuinely care about documentary films and filmmakers, and are passionate about shining a light on all things documentary. Keep up the good work, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Matage S, 5-star. Thanks for caring about documentaries. And my wife is sending me a text message.
You are too.
Yes. So he goes on to say, thanks Thank you, Sturdy and co-hosts, for taking the time to do a podcast like this. Our access to video is so fragmented these days, and it is a great service to provide a forum for in-depth discussion of indie documentaries. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and share the behind-the-scenes and development of... I remember, I can't pronounce this one. Baba Beast. Oh, I did this interview with Todd.
Yeah. That was a great.
Yeah.
I'm sad I missed that doc because that was the interview really had me intrigued.
Yeah, so it's grandmother told grandmother, the English translation, because I still can't pronounce it. And my go-to doc film podcast, 5-star by Patrick Green. He was the one. Eric was on the podcast with us. We interviewed him. He has the. Doc.
For your consideration?
Yeah, for your consideration.
That was the Weinstein one?
Yeah. So he wrote, had the honor of being a guest on episode 25 on Talks on Docs. Love talking doc shop with passionate film lovers who get, quoted, the spirit behind making these labors of love. I'm a big fan of this podcast. Every episode inspires me to be a better filmmaker. Cheers, fellas. Thank you very much for that, Green. I greatly appreciate that, and I hope you're doing great with your newborn son. I've seen a couple of pictures of him on social media. He's a cute little dude. So, yeah, we're getting a lot of good responses back from the directors, and it looks like one listener as well, too. So thanks, you guys, for those awesome reviews. We greatly appreciate it. And for any listeners out there, if you want to leave us a review, feel free to do so, and we'll make sure to mention it on the next couple of episodes. For this episode, this is kind of a special episode, but we are going back to our normal form that we started off with. And for this episode, we are going to be going over 9/11 documentaries, and we've got quite the spread of different types of docs to go over. But for our next episode, I just want to go over the documentaries that we chose. Oh, I don't know, how long ago? What was that?
2?
Yeah, 2 months
ago, yeah.
Dude, I tell you what, man, I did not expect us to get that many director interviews, because I originally just contacted... Well, no, actually it was Melbourne. Mm-hmm. They contacted me and asked if we wanted to interview the directors, and that I was like, yeah, sure. And then it just caught on fire after that, and it was just one director after another contacting us, and somebody had mentioned Doc Utah, and I was like, okay, I'll drop them a line, and then that just fed the fire even more, and it was just one after another. I did not expect 2 months worth of interviews. I only expected like maybe 3 weeks or something.
Yeah, I thought it was fun. Groups. It was a good. I mean, it was a good change of pace, and it's fun. It was very interesting to see behind the curtains of all those, the way they work and what motivates them and how they got created. I liked it. Yeah,
that's definitely, and just the stuff that you learn that you will never learn by just watching the documentary. Of how the producers are and what type of people they are and stuff. Like Mustafa Khan, I think he was probably one of my favorites. Talking to him because we did get to a personal level with him, and but we also had some really fun ones. Amy from I didn't do that one with you guys, did I?
No, but that was Scavenge one was a good interview too.
Yeah, with Amy, she was a blast. She was really funny.
Yeah, the Ringmaster one that was.
Oh yeah.
That was great. Yeah, that was a great.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite experience as far as just you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, between the documentary and the interview, we had no idea what was going to happen.
Yes.
But he was so friendly. I mean, it was they were just open up front, and here's us. It was great.
So yeah, like I mentioned, we're going to go back into our normal style. You're the one that picked Satan and Adam, right?
Correct. Yep.
All right. So for next week, if you want to get ahead of the game and watch these before we do our next episode, it'll be Satan and Adam. I picked Gringo, the something story of John McAfee. I can't read what the title says. And then Prosecuting Evil, that Sean picked. Did you guys watch the John McAfee one?
Yes, I've watched them all, yeah.
Yeah, and what's his last name?
McAfee.
No, it's McAfee, dude. I told you guys that.
It's McAfee.
He even pronounced it McAfee. Did you watch the documentary yet?
Yes, I watched. Yes,
and he said McAfee, right?
No, it's everybody I third. I don't. He doesn't say his own name. He doesn't need to say his name.
Wouldn't he have corrected the people interviewing him?
I think so, but they talk about him as McAfee.
No, they don't.
There's no A in there. It's MC, not MAC.
Whatever. All right. Well, I'm going to watch it again for next week, and hopefully our listeners do too, and we'll settle this score next week. Okay there, HB?
Copy that.
All right. Well, I'm trying to remember how our form used to go. So, yeah, we did iTunes. We usually go into our selections for next week. It was basically what we just did. And we don't have a short doc for this week. And then let's just go ahead and go into our selections for this week.
Prepare to be spoiled. In the breakdown section, our co-hosts go deeper into the conversation and truly express their thoughts on the documentaries.
All right, let's go ahead and go into the breakdown. Sean, you want to start with yours? Yours was...
Yeah, I had From Philadelphia to Fallujah was the one I picked. And I kind of came across this by luck. I wanted to find kind of a different spin on 9/11. We've all seen the conspiracy stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, I think you guys, early on, you guys did a podcast on it.
Yeah.
And so I came across this.
So you just fell on this one? You just kind of came across it? Okay.
I did a search on Amazon Prime for 9/11 documentaries, and this one popped up towards the end.
Well, when I saw that it dealt with football, I was like, oh, this is interesting, because I know Sean's not that big of a sports guy. So,
in my youth. But yeah, so I thought this was kind of an interesting perspective on 9/11. So I'll go ahead and read. There's actually no Rotten Tomatoes rating on this. I couldn't even find a listing for it, and IMDb had no ratings until I added one.
Nice.
So the breakdown is on December 1st, 2001, two ordinary football teams met on a field in Philadelphia's Veterans Stadium to play 60 minutes of football. But this was no ordinary game. This was the Army-Navy game, and this was no ordinary Army-Navy game. This was the Army-Navy game that would occur just weeks after the attacks on September 11th. The players on the field that day knew they would soon graduate and head to war. This film looks back at that historic game and profiles the journeys of three of its players who dedicated themselves to this country, first as cadets and midshipmen, then officers leading the nation in war, and finally answering the question, where are they 10 years later? These are compelling journeys, sometimes with tragic endings, other times with auspicious new beginnings, but always with an incomparable nobility and honor. So as it says in the synopsis, it follows basically two midshipmen and a cadet. For those of you that aren't in the military or veterans, a midshipman is a person going to the Naval Academy, and a cadet is someone going to the Army Academy at West Point. It basically follows 9/11, a brief rundown of 9/11, and then they talk a little bit about the football game and obviously the history of the Army-Navy game. We actually got a greatest moment out of it.
Did we?
Oh, snap.
I missed it. What was it?
Omari Thompson said it was the greatest rivalry in college football by far, in my opinion. So it is probably the oldest rivalry in college football. So, and I'd argue it's the greatest, but I'm an Army vet, so.
Yes. Right. So, wait, actually, I kind of wanted to get into our own personal histories of 9/11 before we actually jumped into the docs, now that I think about it. So I'll start off. So 9/11, I was in college at the time. Both Jen and I were in college. We were married. No, I'm sorry. I take that back. I dropped out of college because we'd married And so we were making some changes. At that time, we were living with my mom, and we were here in town. And I had gotten up early for work, and she was still sleeping because she was going to college, and she had a late class. Mm-hmm. So I got up, did my normal morning routine, was watching the news when the attack actually happened. And everything switched to all the TV channels switched to the Trade Center. So the first image I had was that our nation was under attack and that something had happened at the World Trade Center, and there was already smoke coming out of Tower 1. And then I was just kind of didn't know what to do. And I felt this urge that I needed to get Jen up so that she could see what was going on. So I went to the next room, got her up. I remember asking, "What are you doing? What's going on?" And I said, "Our nation's under attack." And she says, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "No, you got to get up. Something happened in New York when the World Trade Center is under attack." And then she got up. And then we continued to watch the second plane go into the tower and watched basically everything unfold. And by the time there was like almost in half an hour between Tower 2 and the Pentagon being hit. And
I don't recall.
Yeah, I think I was on my way to work when the Pentagon got hit. And so by the time I got to work, I don't think Flight 93, we knew about Flight 93 yet by that time. I think we learned about that at work, if I remember right. But I remember I went into this silent mode for about 2 weeks, and Jen knew that something big was about to change in our lives. Because I remember in high school, so when we were all in high school, that's when Desert Storm was going on. Mm-hmm. And I remember being glued to the television and watching everything unfold in that, and watching whatever I possibly could, and thinking to myself, I think it was our senior or junior year, and thinking to myself, if there was ever a call to duty and I was of age, I would answer that call regardless of what was going on. I remember very specifically telling me that, or telling myself that when I was in high school, because it was just like, I'm able, I'm capable, I'm in good shape. There's no reason for me not to serve our country when I was in high school. But, I was too young at that time. But by the time we graduated, we had already left, or Desert Storm was already over. There was no active war or anything going on. We were in a time of peace. So I went to college. And so during that 2-week period after 9/11, I kept on thinking about that and praying about it, and just basically keeping this conversation going in my head of like, what am I going to do with this, And so at the end of the first week, I'd already talked to the recruiter and everything, and talked to him about what my options were. And I went and did the ASVAB test, scored really well on that, and he basically said, any job you want is yours as long as they have it available. And
were they really busy? Was it like, were you in a line of fellow?
No. So this is what happened. So I originally went into the Army because of my family background. My grandpa and uncle were Army Air Force, because they were back in the Korean War. So they hadn't switched to Air Force yet, I don't believe. But they were actually in the military when it went to Air Force. So, and so I originally wanted to go Army. And the one thing that I liked about the Army was that it gave you a very specific job that you could select. Where, if you wanted to be a topographic analyst or a chaplain assistant or a combat medic, you could very specifically select that job and go into that field or into that job, as long as you could get the ASVAB test score for it and it was available. Where the Marines or Navy or Air Force, you just kind of picked a branch. So like take the engineer brigade. So if you picked engineering and you went in, you didn't know if you were going to be a combat engineer, if you were going to be some dude driving a backhoe or building bridges or doing, bridge demolitions, or whatever it was, you had no choice on that. It wasn't until.
Yeah. Even if you qualified for engineer, if they didn't have any slots, you could be an infantryman in the Marine Corps.
Yeah. I mean, you really had very little control of what your career path was in the Marines, Air Force, Navy. But Army was the only one that was saying, hey, on contract, this is what you're going to get. So that really interested me. I went in just to kind of entertain the idea of going into the Marines or Air Force. And I told them about my past drug history, and they both turned their nose. Well, actually, I remember I really didn't want to do Marines. I crossed that out in my mind. I was like, okay, I'm definitely not doing Marines because I knew about their job selection thing. But I was still really interested in the Air Force. So I went into one of those recruiting offices where it was like all the different recruiters. You had the Marines, you had Navy, you had the Army, the Marines, and Air Force all in the same one. And so I went in and went to the Air Force guy and was talking to him. And the Marine guy was just out of earshot, or he was able to listen in on the conversation. And I was telling the Air Force guy, I was like, hey, I've already talked to the Army, and just so, I'm upfront and honest with everything. I disclosed to them that I used LSD and stuff in high school. Is that going to be a problem with the Air Force? And the Air Force goes, yeah, you definitely can't do Air Force. The Marine, he's like, well, I'll take you. Of course. Of course you guys are going to take me. You'll take anything. And I said, yeah, thanks for the offer, but I don't think I'm going to go that route. I think I'm going to go Army. And they were like, okay, they're cool about it. And so when it came to the Army, and for anybody out there that's listening and is thinking going into the military, my suggestion is if you're going into the Army, is have 3 jobs that you're qualified for and that you can that you will definitely like. And then when you go into MEPS to do your final contract and selection, if they don't have any of those 3 jobs that you want, walk away, because you're going to hate your life. You're going to hate being in the military because they're just going to give you anything. It could be infantry. It could be a cook. It could be, 1,000 different things that you would never want to do. So,
and of those 3 jobs, make sure one of them's a marketable skill when you get out of the military.
Yeah,
I'm really good at shooting mortars, which is not something you do a lot in civilian life.
Yes. So I did really well in ASVAB. So there was the 3 I walked in with. One was a counterintelligence agent, and that was my number 1. My second one was, at the time, was called a topographic analyst, and my third one, I can't remember what the third one was. Yeah, I can't remember. But when I told them my first choice, the counterintelligence agent, they basically laughed at me and said, yeah, right, there's no way in hell you're going to be getting that one. Because I found out that they only take like 5 people out of the entire Army per year for one class to do the counterintelligence agent position. I was like, all right, well, that's definitely no go. And they said, but we have topographic open all day long. We'll sign you up for that. So I went to that, and I signed up. What they had, I don't know if they still have this or not. It's called delay entry program, where they have a delay of when you ship out. So I signed, I think it was September, October. It was like right at the beginning of October, but my departure date for basic training wasn't until January 23rd was my ship out date in 2002. And so I went to to Fort Jackson for basic training from there went and then my AIT was in Washington DC, which was really cool. Graduated at top of the class, and one thing is, if you're at the top of the class, you end up being the first to get deployed. I found out because they need you in theater. So the four top guys that graduated from the class, 3 of us went to Fort Stewart, which was one of the big fighting forces on the Army side from Kuwait into Baghdad. So it was myself, Buddy Ketzel, and Jonathan Perez. And then Ray, who was the top graduate from our class, he was put in at like the Pentagon level. And so he was based out of Kuwait at a level he was like, we had secret clearance, he had top secret clearance, and he was doing stuff that, we never ever found out what he was really doing. But he was the very first one into Kuwait out of everybody in our class. I mean, he literally landed in whatever, he actually was assigned to the Pentagon, so he went Pentagon straight over to Kuwait.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but the rest of us, we went to 3rd Infantry, and we were there. When did we ship out? I can't remember when we shipped out, but we were there in Kuwait for the first couple of months, right up until the beginning of the war. What was it, March 23rd? So we were there right at the border, and from Kuwait up to on the left side, or I guess west side of Iraq, and up to there was a Kuwait, or I'm sorry, there's an Iraqi Army base that we took over, and then they decided that they wanted to push all the way into Baghdad and went into Baghdad and stuff. So we'll get in more later on in the episode. Sorry, I kind of went down a long path there. But yeah, that's the long of 9/11 for me personally. And I remember my parents, they kind of knew that I was going to end up doing it. It was kind of very emotional for them to see their son go off to war and stuff. So, but that's how 9/11 changed my life. Anybody else?
For me, it was definitely a wake up. I was similar to you in the sense that I was in college. I was down in Las Vegas. I did morning classes. I just think I was always an early bird. So I turned on the TV, and just like you, I saw the first tower already burning.
Yeah.
And then, kind of wondered what the heck was on here. Why are we watching this movie or something? And
right.
want to see the news. And then I literally was standing there watching as I'm eating my cereal, and the second plane hits, and it just, it hit me. It was something's wrong. This is, we don't get attacked.
So surreal, right?
Yeah.
Is it still very clear in your head?
Oh yeah, I can put myself in my apartment in Las Vegas, and I can do a 360 and see everything in the room, and I can watch the TV's playing on top of my dresser. Yep. And I can. It's frozen forever. It's crazy. And then, so I went to school that day. I went to class, and it was a zombie day, is the best way I've described it. Like everybody showed up to their classes, and there were TVs on, or a couple times the teacher said, we can talk, or you guys can go back to the student union. And so there were TVs on in the student union, and everybody's just kind of watching and talking and crying. And I definitely I was getting upset, and so I just went back to my dorm room on campus, and I just sat and watched it too. And my roommate left. He went with a friend. He was Hawaiian, and so he had other Hawaiians on our floors. Actually, a lot of Hawaiians at UNLV. And so I was alone in my room all day. It was very surreal. And so I finished my degree, and everything went on lockdown as far as hiring in a lot of the agencies I was looking at. And it was interesting. I wanted to be in the FBI for the longest time, and before that I'd tested to be in the Naval Academy. I wanted to be a submarine driver and an officer on a submarine. And I was still am super comfortable in small places, and I'm a big guy, but everybody didn't seem to understand that my parents would find me in the closet reading books sometimes. I was just comfortable and cozy in a small place.
Yeah.
So I got nominated to the Merchant Marine Academy instead, and said, well, am I going to get to drive submarines? I know that's kind of a high-speed deal. They like you to be, he's like, about 5 years you can maybe transfer to the Navy, but you're not going to drive a sub.
Right. Yeah.
And so I thankfully turned it down and went to Vegas and got my bachelor's. And yeah, it was weird. All the agencies were creating Homeland Security, and so there was all this money to be had, but nobody was wanting to spend it yet. They didn't know what the government was going to do.
Right.
And so they created the Department of Homeland Security, and they froze all the county and state level positions. And so, that's how I ended up coming back up here to town and finding work here. I never thought about joining the military then. At that point, I was past that. One of my best friend, James, his brother was in Shane. He was in the Army when it went down. He was about 5 years older than us. He was a combat medic.
Yeah. And
then James went in, and he was counterintelligence. So he did really well. He was probably one of the smartest friends I have.
Yeah.
And he got top secret clearance. He ended up working for a defense contractor here in town until recently. After he got out, he got stop lost and eventually got out after that. But yeah, he was in on a bunch of the raid or a bunch of the battles. Went into Iraq. Has crazy stories about all that and the things he saw. And it definitely made me feel like this is a moment. Yeah, it resets the clock as far as America being attacked since Pearl Harbor. And if anything, it built my pride up more in our country. Of there's that picture, the commercial, I think it just is, of the day before 9/11, it's just a neighborhood, a street, with porches and whatnot, and then the day after is flags flying, and every house has some sort of patriotic sign. And so one of the big reasons that we always fly a flag at my house, and ever since I've had a house, I've put a flag out and respect it the best I can. And we live in a great country, and it just takes me off to no other when I think about what happened.
Right.
You were kind of locked into college at that time. I mean,
I was a junior.
Thinking of the difference between you and me, it's like I was just working for my buddy, at a flooring company, I wasn't walking away.
I was a junior. I graduated the May following 9/11, and I was on track. I was going to do 2 years in a local job, and then I was going to go in the FBI because they wanted you to be 25.
Yeah.
And I was, young enough to where I was like, okay, I'll do 2 years, and then I'm going up to FBI or Secret Service, but probably FBI, because at the time, leading up to Bush, I couldn't stand Clinton, and I didn't know honestly if I was willing to take a bullet, and I didn't want to hesitate. So I thought the FBI would be more productive and rewarding.
Yeah. Plus, you saw a lot of Point Break and wanted to learn to surf, right?
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't so much of a big jump for me because I didn't have kids. Jen and I were basically newlyweds at that time. By that time, and
I was pretty much single, surfing the college world.
Yeah, I was, not. We were living out of my mom's house at that time, trying to save up to buy our first house, which would have been a huge mistake now that I think back to it. We were way too young and looking at a really bad place of town that we were literally very close to buying a house right before 9/11. But it was a blessing, I guess, that part. So, yeah, I had very little to walk away from. Like I said, I was working for my best friend in a flooring company. So it was just like, oh, you'll have a job when you get back, if you get back. Screw you, Craig.
Nice. Yeah, thanks, bro. So my story is a little different. I joined the Army in '96, and I had actually completed my active duty tour, and I was in the National Guard. We had just got back from Germany, I think 3 months prior. And we were living at my brother-in-law's house, and he woke me up. He's a contractor, so he's up early. He woke me up and he said, "Hey, dude, I think we're under attack. You might want to turn on your TV." And not 5 minutes later, my phone rang. It was my first sergeant in the National Guard, and he said, "You need to be ready to come here at any minute."
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah. So I was actually. Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
The Tower 1 was already burning when he called, but yeah, it was.
Oh, that's crazy.
So I spent the day. I spent the day dressed, ready to head out the door, in uniform.
Oh,
and then,
wow.
And watch the news that way with
That's stressful.
Yeah, yeah, it was. We didn't know what was going to happen, but
right. Should I shave first or?
Right. Yeah, I was basically on call that whole first week.
Man, you're afraid to drop trout even.
Yeah, yeah. And as my unit is an hour and a half drive from here, so
yeah.
What was your job?
I joined the Army so in '96, to go back to what Sturdy was saying about having a goal in mind when you walk into the MEP station.
Yes.
I wanted college money. That was why I joined the Army. So at that time, they only offered college money to infantrymen. So I basically maxed my ASVAB, and they said, well, you can do anything you want, but if you want college money, here's a rifle. So
right. Yes.
So I became an indirect fire infantryman. I learned to shoot mortars. I was pretty good at it, but I got out in 01 thinking I was just going to finish out my commitment in the National Guard and, never have to really do anything. Up to that point, God and Uncle Sam had decided they didn't need me to shoot anybody. Yeah. So when I got to my National Guard unit prior to 9/11, we were on orders to do a security deployment in Kuwait. And this was prior to 9/11. So when 9/11 happened, they said they basically didn't change our mission. We were already on orders to do that. So and we were leaving in January-ish of 02. So obviously the mission changed a little bit, but we didn't really change our time frame or anything, but what we were doing there was a little bit more significant. I would say.
Did you ever have to go into work like that day or that night as far as from your first sergeant?
No, we never actually got called in. We just had to call in to the unit twice a day just to make sure that, we were still ready and there's nothing else happening. But, things, if you'll recall, things pretty much calmed down after 9/11. There was still the anthrax scare for a while. After that day, there wasn't really any reason to call us in.
Yeah, nobody could travel. That was nuts.
Yeah. I had one of my Army buddies was actually in, I think was he in Germany still? Sorry, my wife's sitting here.
I don't know, Sean, was he?
He was in Germany still. He got stuck in London. They said, okay, you need to come back. So his flight took him to London. When he got to London, they said, you're a priority person. You got to come back, but you can't have anything bigger than a briefcase. So he had to ship all his bags from London to Kentucky, and then they had another layover, I think in Ireland or something. Yeah, and there you couldn't even have a briefcase. They're like, yes, you're on orders. Yes, we want to get you back to the States, but you can't have anything with you. So then he had to ship his briefcase back.
Oh wow!
But yeah, it was a pretty crazy time for the military. I had my buddies in my old unit in Germany. They were put on a boat and they sat off the coast of Turkey for months.
Yeah,
waiting for what was going to happen next.
Yeah, I remember hearing something about that too. What was the division?
First Infantry.
Yeah, First Infantry.
Yeah.
Okay. The big red one.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's what my friend James was in. He was the big red one.
They're no longer there anymore, though. They're out, right? You weren't in there. What was the? Never mind.
We could go down the Army story rabbit hole for hours.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. We definitely could. All right, so that's kind of out of the way. I just kind of wanted to let the listeners know kind of like what our background with 9/11 was personally and how it affected us or how it changed our lives and stuff. So, all right, so back to your documentary.
So that's kind of why I had an attachment to this documentary. Is it's the military right after 9/11. And Sturdy, did you have any West Point lieutenants that you got the pleasure of dealing with in the Army?
I did not. Not that I knew of. Nothing that I dealt with directly. So the chaplain that's in the documentary, what was his first name?
Omari.
Yeah, Omari. So he ended up at Fort Drum, and he looked familiar. But then when he said when he was at Fort Drum, I was already gone from Fort Drum because after Fort Stewart, after we came back from the Army, they immediately did this change in the Army, and they again, of course, used us to make this major transformation for our MOS, and so we got shipped up to Fort Drum. But yeah, that chaplain that's in this documentary, he looked familiar, but it ended up not being who I thought it was. But no, I never had any direct contacts, or because we answered our MOS, we answered to a first sergeant and a warrant officer.
Oh, gotcha.
So until we made the change, and when we made the change in our MOS and went to Fort Drum, then yeah, we did answer to lieutenant and captains, but they were so they're full of themselves and very didn't want anything to do with the enlisted soldiers. They're just like, make sure you know what the hell you're doing, and make sure you know. Well, actually, it was interesting because they had no idea what the hell we did for an MOS.
Right.
And
so what's the difference between a West Pointer and a regular, I guess, a non-West Pointer officer?
So a West Pointer, they work very hard to become officers, and it's a lot of work to be a West Pointer. Far more work than it is to do ROTC in a normal college, or OCS is kind of the other option. So they have a little bit of extra pride and arrogance because they went to West Point. It is the oldest military academy in the United States, and a lot of pride goes along with that. We had my first platoon leader was a West Point football player, actually, and he was quite full of himself. And a mortar platoon is a specialized platoon in an infantry unit, and so most infantry lieutenants, infantry officers don't know a whole lot about mortars. They know how to call for fire and get mortar fire when they need it. They don't really know how to set up a gun or make it work or anything like that. So he wanted to be in charge more than my platoon sergeant wanted to allow him to be in charge. And so I spent my first year as a private trying to figure out who I was actually supposed to listen to. I had one other West Point officer. He was in my squadron, but he wasn't actually in charge of me. That was when I was in Germany. He was not as bad as the first one. The first one, those two guys it is a problem when commissioned and non-commissioned officers don't get along. The platoon doesn't work when they don't get along. So that was my first lesson in the Army when I was a private.
Wow. Yeah. Did you guys actually watch this game?
I did not.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm pretty sure I had a guard training that day, which was unfortunate. We should all watched it, but we were kind of getting ready to go to war, so it took priority over watching football, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I was just so obsessed with watching anything that was coming out and that was newsworthy. And like I've said on the podcast before, I'm not a big sports guy at all. So, I wasn't into watching college football or Army-Navy rival football or anything like that. So I'm pretty confident I was just watching CNN the entire time.
I made a point. I mean, I'm a big football fan, and especially like college, even more than pros at times. And I distinctly remember that return kick, that kick that Omari ran back, and because it always just blew my mind. I'm a huge Notre Dame fan, but then the Navy plays them every year, and then I know Army obviously plays Navy, and I'm just blown away by how small these dudes are. I'm like, these. Yeah, he's 5'7" or something. But these military guys, even the big quote unquote linemen, they can't be that. They can't be Notre Dame and like these huge schools that like they weigh 300 pounds. Like you still got to do push-ups and you still got to run. Yep. Yeah. And you still got to pass the tests. Like he can't be like carbo loading and like getting himself to pro NFL build. Yep. And yet they fight their off and make it a game. And so I remember watching that game and loving it. And I try and watch it every year, and especially now with my boys, have them watch it with me.
Yeah. Man, that guy is quick, too. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Nimble as all hell.
Yeah.
Because he was 5'7", and
160, I think, is what they said.
160. That is. And you're playing, college football, man. That's just, whew. That.
Yeah, I was
170
my senior year of high school.
I I gained 20 pounds in basic training to get to 160.
Wow.
Yeah. I think I was the only one that gained weight in basic training.
Yeah.
So you were young though, because when I went into basic training, of course, I was already married and everything, and so I was 23, and which is kind of old going into the Army. I was typically the oldest in my basic training. I think there were 3 others in the entire brigade that were older than me. One guy was quite a bit older. He had to get a variance or a special thing signed off for him because he was like in his late 30s.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 35 when I got out, 35 was the cutoff.
Yeah, I think he was 38.
If you had prior service, you could count your years of prior service against that. So like if you had been in the military for 3 years and then got out and then wanted to come back in, you could be 38.
Yeah.
Yeah, to come back in. But yeah.
I think he got a waiver at 38 with no prior.
Wow.
Yeah, because of his ASVAB and his test score and the MOS he was going into, they basically waived him on for that.
I couldn't imagine. No, basic training was rough enough when I was 19 and lean and in shape.
Right. Yeah.
I really liked this one. I thought it was fun to hear the story of those guys. It was incredible, hearing about the one guy that doesn't make it. I mean, he was the picture of, Captain America, gregarious. Everybody loved him. The all-American kid, dad served.
Yeah, he's textbook.
And then he just takes a shot like a sniper shot. And it's like, that sucks. He went down without a fight. Like he didn't have a chance,
Yeah. Like Jen was watching that and she gasped when she heard about how the bullet traveled. Mm-hmm. Like, so it basically went through the gap of the armor of his plates and in his shoulder, and it could have turned any which direction at that point. It could have gone up, down, left, right, out the back, anything, but it ended up, it sounds like, going directly to his heart, and he was probably dead before he hit the ground when you have your heart blow up like that, So yeah, that was definitely devastating. I'm kind of surprised that the dad had that much knowledge about what happened. I don't know if one of his team members got a hold of him and told him the story of exactly what happened, or if that's like a kind of a military formality of explaining, like if they know exactly how it went down, that they tell it. I don't know. I've never been in that situation, and hope never do.
Well, and you got to remember he was a vet too, so
that's what I thought.
I'm sure he could probably get vet to vet, you can get a lot more information out of people than.
Yeah, you're right. The other thing that kind of caught my attention was when the chaplain Omari, when he was talking about his calling while he was there in Iraq, when he was sitting next to the Abrams tank, and it was like complete silence except for like the humming of the tank. And I knew exactly what he was talking about because we have those tanks around us all the time, those Abrams tanks, and they did have a very unique sounding hum and buzz to them. They were super impressive to watch in combat, that's for sure. But you definitely knew when those things were coming by and when they were around. And him talking about that, like, totally brought back all of those memories in my mind of watching those Abrams and listening to them and hearing them just all over the place while we were over there. And so that part, like, really got to me. And then the dad talking about, was it JP?
Yeah.
Yeah. Talking about JP, and it's not right for a parent to lose a child, and they're showing pictures of, or no, wait, that's the other documentary. I'm mixing up my documentaries now. But yeah, just him talking about, it's the reverse order. It's, the parents are not supposed to lose their kids. It's supposed to be the other way around, and thinking about my own kids and what it would be like to lose my kids. I got teary-eyed on that stuff, of course.
The fact that he knew, you got to be proud. You got to be proud of your kid, right? That he's stepping up and he's gonna defend the country. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm sure he knew in the pit of his stomach that his son wasn't coming home. And
well, he said that. He said they had that feeling of dread at the moment he last talked to him or said goodbye.
Yeah, it was at that restaurant that they went out to.
For that last night. And I mean, I talked to my wife about that, and we have talked about this before, like military service, kind of like you're saying, and she knows I was going to, and
Yep.
Yeah, she is very much of the mindset that she's gonna find a way to talk /order /duct tape our children down if they are at all thinking they're gonna serve, and I'm of totally the opposite mindset. So it's gonna be an interesting battle if our children go that way, because I'll be the dad that'll be holding their flag high, and sad to see him go, but more proud than I could ever be, and she'll be popping their tires as they try and drive away.
Yeah.
So that was the same way with my mom. I mean, she did not want me to go in the Navy or the Naval Academy. She thought it was horrible, but she never told me. She told my dad, and my dad would tell me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, my dad sat me down on the porch and talked to me for about an hour and a half. My dad is a pastor, and so for me to decide to join the Army was a little bit interesting for him, and he tried to talk me out of it, but I had already made my decision at that point. So, and I don't regret it. It was the best decision I ever made. But
I think it was harder on my dad for me to go into the military than it was my mom, because my mom grew up in the military, so she kind of already had that flavor and knowledge of what the military life was like, because she was Army Air Force. Her brother was in Army Air Force, her dad was, so that's all she knew growing up. So I think it was a little bit easier on her, or a little bit more accepting. Maybe not easier, but more accepting. Whereas more confusing and emotional for my dad, because I'm his only son. I have my sister, but in the way of sons, I'm the only son. I'm the last of the Sturdivant bloodline, if you want to make a big deal out of it, which I don't, but yeah, that's funny that you talk about your wife and how she's kind of against your kids going in the military, because my wife's the exact opposite. If she had the choice to send our sons off to the military now, she probably would at certain days. She has no problem with Asa or Zyler going into the military, and I don't either. I know the right way to go into the military. I think a lot of people get the wrong idea when they go into the military, or for the wrong reasons. Because I saw a lot of people that got into the military and they got into the wrong MOS and they just absolutely hated it. They hated every bit of it, and it was because of the job that they ended up selecting or getting stuck with. And I'm glad that I made my decision later on in life, because I had that little bit of knowledge, of kind of wisdom of going into it and making sure I picked something that I was going to enjoy and know how to do. But anytime, I've been asked several times, like when I was working as a police officer with the Explorers program, a lot of those kids end up going into the military, and they would always ask me about my experience in the military, and I'd tell them exactly what I told you guys. It's like, have three choices, know everything that you can about those three choices, and if they can't give you those three choices, say, okay, fine, call me when you have those available. Don't sell yourself into something else, and don't sell yourself into the money, because you'll end up blowing through that money quicker than you'll ever think. And you'll hate yourself for the rest of the 4 years that you have left.
Yeah.
This documentary was definitely uplifting and quite the emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, I definitely give it a recommend. It's, if you're into football and you care about the country, I think you need to see it. I mean, it put a new light on my watching of that game, even though I already respect it and think it's impressive. Just it really kicks in. Like, those guys, especially in that game, knew that especially like Omari, like he was going in like months. I mean, not even a year. I don't think he was. He was going to be in a different uniform, in a big old tank, and different world.
Yeah, I thought that was great. The thing that the sportscasters pointed out, that these guys, when they went into the military, when they went to the academies and meet all these people, they're like, they all got their eyes wide open. They know where they're going, and they're ready to go.
Yeah, to be able to be the president too, walking on the field, I think it's cool, the traditions that the president has, and And, to meet those guys face to face and realize you're going to be ordering them to take a lot of lives and hold a lot of lives in their hands. Yeah. So I thought that was good that they showed Bush and showed his involvement. I think there's a tradition I heard that they change sides or something. Mid-game, the president sits on, say, Army Navy, sits on the Army sideline for the first half, and then there's a big to-do. There's a big to-do at halftime where they cross the field and get escorted, like the officers from each team or from the admin of the academies meet the president and escort him back to their side, kind of thing.
That's really cool.
So he sits on each side of the field throughout the game, and then doesn't pick sides necessarily in that way.
I don't even think my wife watched this and she really enjoyed it. I don't think you really need to be a football fan either.
No. I think if you want to know military history, you want to know, sports. It really touches a bunch of different levels. And the nice thing is too, it's 41 minutes. It's short enough that it but it's got enough length to it too that you can really tell the story. They tell the story well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the scene with Storm and Norman after the run back. I hadn't seen him in forever. I think he's obviously passed, but he was a larger than life figure during that time of my life when that was going on. I mean, he was the kicking Storm and Norman, from the first Gulf War.
Yeah, you used to run into him here in town every once in a while. He'd come for the Safari Club show here in town. He would always come for that. And my dad worked at Mark Morton Strike, and they were big sponsors of Safari Club. So I met him once. I was pretty young, but
wow. Pre-Storm and Norman Schwarzkopf.
Yeah.
HB, you ready to go on to yours?
Yeah. So I picked Children of 9/11. The synopsis of this one is 10 years later, Children of 9/11 gives a voice for the first time to the young people directly affected by 9/11. More than 3,000 children lost a parent on that fateful day, and some were not yet born. They were still in the womb when the towers collapsed. Their lives are linked by a terrible accident of fate that has made their childhoods part of the most significant and terrifying event of modern times. Over the course of a year, Children of 9/11 has followed 11 children from 6 families across America. We hear from some who are only just beginning to comprehend what they lost that day, while others, remarkably, are now able to find a way to positively transform their lives. Their honest recollections of this confusing and catastrophic day, as well as their difficult and inspiring journeys in the years since, offer incredible insight into the far-reaching consequences of September 11th. So, kind of like Sean, I think I just searched for this one. I was wanting to see what was out there, and I really was not enthused by all the conspiracy theory ones, and kind of my opinion on those is, I knew it happened. I know it happened. I watched it happen. I've, guys that have, went and served afterwards like you guys. Yeah. I really don't, in one hand, I don't care, why they did it, or, was it a real estate scheme or some BS?
Yeah.
This touched me as, people that were affected that I've never thought of, right. The children, like 3,500 people, I think kids is what they quoted, lost a parent. Mm-hmm. That's almost one per person from what I've heard in the towers.
Yeah, it is one per person. It's actually more. It's like 1.1.
Yeah. So it was amazingly touching to me. I mean, my wife would not watch this one with me. I watched half of it one night and was telling her about it, and she basically told me to stop talking. As a mom, she couldn't imagine, some of the stories. I mean, it goes into the incredible, kids that were in the womb to the kids that were literally the guy that dies in 9/11, one of the fathers. And they have video of him on September 8th showing a sign with his 2-year-old about his little sibling that was born on September 7th. Yeah. And to know 3 days later, it's all over. And that's the last memory. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. And a crazy roller coaster.
The oldest kid was 12 when it happened?
The guy whose mom was in the Pentagon?
No, the girl. Tasha?
Yeah, his dad was in the fire department?
Yeah. How old was she? I had it in my notes.
Yeah, she was 12.
Yeah, she's 22 in the filming. Because this took place in 2011 is when they filmed it. So it's 10 years after. And I liked her. She has some sass and some personality. And it was pretty, interesting to hear her point of view that one of the things that I didn't know but makes sense is that a lot of the families of the folks that died, and her dad was a first responder, got some sort of compensation, and she catches from her friends when she rolled up in a car,
right,
that she used to buy that money with to go to college, and she's like, I would give this car this money back 1,000,000 times to have one hug for my dad.
Yeah.
She got angry about that.
Oh yeah.
I liked what her brother said though. A lot of people's dads die and they don't get compensated.
Mm-hmm.
He seemed pretty well grounded, that kid.
Yeah.
They didn't really talk to him much, but yeah.
It really struck me too. The other kid. So there was the one with 3 siblings.
Yeah.
The older brother, I think a middle sister, and then a third one that I think was born right after, or right before the 9/11, and he was basically saying, he was about 7 or 8, and he felt that he had memories that his sister never would have, and they don't know his pain because they don't have to have memories in their head of their father. And she was 4, I think, and she doesn't remember him. She just doesn't hurt. And in talking to my wife about that, she basically correlated it to, the old saying of, would you rather have loved and lost or never have loved at all?
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. I think everybody, says they'd rather love and lose than never experience the love to begin with. So that was frustrating. It was frustrating to see that those families couldn't come together over that, and it's still dividing them.
That was a rough scene when he was talking about that, because I was wrestling with what he said too. I was like, man, I don't know. I get where he's coming from, but I don't know if I'm 100% on board to agree with what he said.
Yeah, I didn't. I think you need to open the door, and that's one way to share it and work through it.
Mm-hmm.
That camp that they go to, that was pretty cool. That there's a survivors camp for the kids, and
he was a totally different kid there.
Yeah,
he was totally different. Yeah, it was that's a great thing for him.
You can't discount too. He's a 17-year-old boy. Yeah. He's they got a 17-year-old boy's got a little angst anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So he may. I think he's going to mature out of that and realize what he had. He has matured out of it at this point, probably. So.
Yeah, I thought it was powerful. Some of the families they touched. I mean, the guy that was on the Flight 93, and being able to talk to him 3 times.
Yes.
And know that he's right with Beamer and was about to try and take the cockpit, and obviously I think she's built him up in her kids' eyes to be the hero that he hopefully was on that flight, and it was pretty. The kids on one hand are like, yeah, we met the president, it was great, but our dad was a hero, and he stopped that plane from killing, going to the president's house.
Yeah.
So I definitely, this one, I mean, if you're a parent in one way, I think it's required because
for sure.
It shows the effect, the ripple effect of an event. And it doesn't have to be 9/11. It could be, the death of a family member, a parent, and how it affects the kids in ways that I just wasn't surprised, but I just hadn't imagined.
Right. And also the importance of the age of those children when it happens. Like with my kids, I have a newborn up to 13. They're all, if I had been in that situation, or if something were to have happened to me, it's going to affect all of them in so many different ways, just because of where they're at in their life. Of course, our infant, she wouldn't have any memory of me, but I think all my children above that, from Zyler on up, I think would definitely have memory of me. Because the one brother, he was saying, he was only 3 or 4. And I think the kids even said that they don't have like physical memories of their dads. But I personally couldn't see Zyler not remembering me. I don't know if that's just me guarding my heart, because I don't know when I think back to when I was that age, we were living in Carson, and I can remember things in Carson.
Mm-hmm.
And,
what my memories back to about 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing they include in this that I thought was very interesting to add an interesting twist was the Muslim family. I mean, their dad was a server or a employee of the the restaurant on the roof, I think it was. And they're Muslims, they're practicing Muslims, and her younger brother was a baby, and she totally remembers things, but the life of a Muslim now. So they had that Muslim family, and what they've gone through, and they're as much pain as anybody else. Mm-hmm. And then they have the other family, and they literally have the daughter in that one, when they talk about Osama bin Laden getting attacked and killed, say that she basically could never forgive or talk to a Muslim person. It could be a million I'm sorry's, and she would not entertain caring about a Muslim. And it was just, she's like a teenager, and she's just seared into her brain that she will never, and it crossed my mind, what if she meets a Muslim man of her dreams?
Right.
And she doesn't know he's a Muslim until it's too late and she can't let him go. Like, how would she rectify that in her heart?
Right.
Yeah. I really liked it. I'm glad that somebody looked at these kids and thought their story was important as other people's.
Did you think about the Muslim family at all until they revealed it? Like, when they made it a point in the documentary that they were Muslim? Like, it totally was, like, completely blank in my mind.
Oh.
Like, I didn't even think about that.
I was like, well, honestly, in my head, I was like, wow, they look, like they're from Saudi Arabia or Pakistani.
Right.
I dated a gal from the United Arab Emirates for a while, and that's who it reminded me of. And I didn't think of it with her until, and this was in college, right after 9/11, until she was telling me how it was affected, that, she needed to know my opinion of her as, somebody from Saudi Arabia. And I was like, I don't care. You didn't fly a plane. I mean, what's the point of asking? You're you and they're them.
Yeah.
But her whole religion has been stigmatized.
Right.
And how many of those kids and their moms took them out of the situation and moved them, I thought was interesting.
Right.
Just for their kids' benefit to be in a new place was very interesting.
Yeah, because I didn't even think about them being Muslim whatsoever until halfway through the documentary, when they like make it a point to reveal it that they're Muslim and how that affected him. I was just like, I thought about like my personal response. It's like, okay, why did I respond that way? Like, why was I blind to that? And I was kind of glad that I was blind to it, because I was like, okay, I'm being colorblind to them as being Muslims. I'm not making it a point, because I was over there in Iraq fighting and, making plans and war plans and stuff against Muslim people, and, you had that thought in the back of your head of that the enemy is the Muslim faith while you're over there. And so it was kind of eye-opening to me personally. It was like I've matured out of that kind of mentality that I had during that time and stuff. And what did you guys think when they were showing the scenes of the crowds when they announced that Osama bin Laden had been taken out? Did you guys have any kind of thoughts? Or
it was like a kind of embarrassing. It was a crazed, riotous, like animalistic group of people. Like, okay, good, we won a battle, we won a significant chunk of the war by doing that, but I never felt that way,
Yeah, I was shocked by that. I mean, I think my personal reaction when Osama bin Laden was taken was, it's about time, I think is what I thought. But to be cheering in front of the White House, I mean, it's very interesting to me that there was people that would even do that.
Yeah. I was taken back by it as well too, because I don't remember that.
No.
I don't remember America responding like that or seeing that on the news or any of that. I was like, man, were we really like that when we got that news?
Yeah, I remember hearing that news and questioning it. I honestly was like, really? Did they killed him? I questioned, okay, I think they got him. I believe that.
Right.
But I honestly thought he is in one of those floating prisons and they are squeezing him in every demented possible way for intel. Why would they kill him? Like, why would they not go out of their way to not kill him? And so I really questioned, the at-sea burial that they said they did of him on the carrier or whatever. I thought he was, in the face-off prison, getting pulled for information. But and then one last thing that I also thought of was the daughter. One of the gals says how whenever 9/11 comes up every single year, well, there were two comments. One, she's the 9/11 kid. That was the gal, I think, that went back to Arkansas with her mom. And then the other one in New York, she was basically, she has to watch her dad die every single time that video plays. Yes. It's not just a video to her. And I'd never thought of that way. Yeah. Like, I realized there's 3,000 people in that building that's going down each time. And I never realized what it would be like to see, like, my dad, yep, there he went again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that one really hit me. That really hit me when she said that, because I had never thought of that. Mm-hmm. We always talk about never forget and mm-hmm. all of that, but yeah, that's got to be terrible for her every year.
Mm-hmm.
To have that constant reminder, and that's not going to fade away. I mean,
no.
I've had my dad passed away, and yeah, it's really rough and tough for the first couple of, I'd probably say first 5 years, but it slowly is not as impactful. It's like, time,
scabs over.
Yeah, time has healed that wound of losing my dad. But that is a scab that's getting ripped off at a certain date every single year. And mm-hmm. How do you get away from that? You can't.
Yeah. But she also lives still in New York, and obviously still associates with the guys and folks he worked with.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and she has a lot of pride in her dad.
Yeah.
She had all those videos of him memorized, like all the ones of him when he was on the news and with that awesome cop stash that he had.
Yeah, and that motto that they have on their patch, anytime, baby.
Yeah.
They can just answer the phone at any time. I don't think that would fly nowadays, on the patch.
No, probably. I don't know. Maybe in New York. I don't know.
Yeah, don't know. New York. They're New York, so everybody else can blank off.
So emotionally, out of these two, did one of them touch you more or bring more tears to your eyes?
Definitely the children one.
The children one
just resonated more, and thinking about how my boys would feel if something happened to me tragically in the ages they're at, which is about 4 and 7. What would I be remembered? And it just resonated with me closer to home than the other one did.
What about you, Sean?
Yeah, same for me. The kids are innocent. The Marine that died he went into it knowing that was a risk. Kids don't consciously take that risk or expect to have to. So yeah, that one definitely hit me more.
I would say the kid one would have, and the reason I'm saying it like that is because of the Prozac that I take for PTSD from being a police officer. Does a lot of blocking emotional response. So there's I can logically think through the documentaries and say I should be crying at this, or I would be crying through this if it wasn't for the Prozac inhibiting me from crying. If that makes sense.
Totally.
Because that is one of the things that Prozac does is blocks the depression and the tearjerker side of it. There were moments where it was like, okay, a little bit of tearing of eyes, but not like very emotionally overdriven by them. But I felt like if either of them were to have been more emotional for me, it would have been the child one, like you said with HB, of the connection with the children and thinking about how would my kids react with such a wide range of ages, which, thinking of which child would act this way or how that specific child would react to it and stuff. So that one logically drew closer to me than the other one. So 2 emotional ones. Now, do you guys want to get pissed off and go on to mine?
Yeah.
So this one came to us through Docurama, which is a streaming service that you can get onto through Amazon. You can get through it through Sony or such. If you want to learn more about Docurama, just check us out on Facebook or Twitter, and we'll have links to Docurama and the different platforms you can get to on Docurama. We'll will be hopefully in the near future covering more of the documentaries on Docurama. That's all they focus on is documentaries, and that's what I got turned on to for this. It basically works as like a channel on like Amazon Prime and stuff. It's like one of the channels that you can purchase or you can get through or free through Tubi. Did you guys try that Tubi app?
Yes.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty cool app. I hadn't heard of it.
Yeah, I've actually watched quite a few things on there. You can get a lot of random stuff on there that you can't find anywhere else.
Yeah, and it's all free. The app is free. You can watch everything on there free. When you open up the app, if you go to browse, it will bring up a list of different things, and if you go down that list, you'll find Docurama, and so you open up that tab off of the list, Docurama, and it'll pull up all the Docurama documentaries that they have available, so check that out for sure. So anyways, back to my documentary. It's called The Woman Who Wasn't There, and I wish that the title was different.
Yeah.
So I was kind of shocked that the title was so accurate.
Yes.
I thought, oh, maybe it's like she wasn't there, like she checked out mentally, or
right.
Or she wasn't there that day, but she's usually there, you know.
Yes.
That's what my wife thought it was going to be.
Okay, so it was work. Okay, so it was a little misleading for some.
Yeah, because it's unbelievable. Like it's so on the nose that you think, oh, I can't mean that.
Right. So, oh man, I don't even know where to start with. I wish they would have changed the name because I was afraid to share it. I wish I could have shared the documentary with you guys not knowing what the name of it was. So you'd go into it completely blind.
Yeah.
And not having that little bit of taste of what it could be. Because when you know the title, you keep on kind of jumping to that conclusion. Like, maybe she made this up, or maybe she just wasn't there, or what. I don't know. Do you think it deserved a different title, or?
I don't know. I think the title's fine. I think the title's fine.
See,
what do you think, HB?
I mean, I think it leaves it open enough. I mean, my wife legitimately, I'd watched like the first 2 minutes of it, and I'd already read the synopsis. So, I knew, and I turned it on for her, and we watched it and she's like, "What's that supposed to mean?" And then later she's like, "I thought it meant like, you know, one of those miraculous things where she didn't get on the plane, or she didn't go to work that day, or she." And then the intro part is her not going to coffee with her Maui husband. Because she had an appointment to go to, you know. So it's like, oh, she missed the chance. She should have been there. She feels guilty.
They did do that. So yeah, they did do that misleading at the beginning of, oh, she was supposed to have been in the towers, but she wasn't there. So the woman who wasn't there, they did do a little misleading there at the beginning, which is a good point.
And I didn't read the synopsis, so I was kind of in the same boat. Where I was just like, is it really? Because her story is fishy the whole time. Like the whole time, you're like, that doesn't seem right, or you know, every time she says something else, you're like, that's a little amazing.
Yes.
So the
firefighter that just walks in. Yeah. Go ahead, HP.
The opening interview of her, where they talk to her, and she does that first little blurb. Just looking at her eyes, like, okay, yes, I'm jaded, and I have some different experiences on talking to folks, but. She looks at the camera, she's talking, and she totally, like, after having watched, I watched this one third, so after having watched the first two, with all these people that were tangibly affected by this, same amount of time, a decade later, and that's the way she did, and her eye motion and her looking, she gave this look of, like, here's my piece, and then all of a sudden her face went to, like, you believe me, right? Did that make sense? Did I say the right thing? Yeah. Did I get the right version this time? I forgot.
Well, you and I have
in her eyes. I saw that.
Yeah, you and I have a little bit different training of watching interviews, with me being an ex-cop and stuff. But after that interview, I was like, you lied about that whole thing.
But I still believe maybe she was just embellishing it, like. Because I was telling my wife, she says she's on the 78th floor and she saw an airplane engine. She saw it as it vaporized her head. Like, no way did she survive that close to the crash.
Okay, well,
nobody on that floor was even close to surviving.
Right. That, and then she says that she saw the second plane which is absolutely impossible because they came from different sides.
Oh.
She says that there's somebody else there, and the other lady said something like, watch out, there's another plane coming, there's another plane coming. Mm-hmm. It's like, there's no way you could have seen that if you were in if you saw the first plane and you were in building 1, that plane came in from the west and hit the west side of Tower 1. Well, plane 2 hit the east, if I'm thinking of it correct, I could be completely flipped on this, but it hit the complete opposite side of the second tower. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you're making this all up right at the beginning. Because there's no possible way she could have seen both planes while being in either or tower.
Yeah.
So,
well, and then just the way everybody believes it. I mean, she speaks at a guy's funeral. She marries a dead guy. Who? It's like I looked at my wife and I said, "Isn't it like that Sandra Bullock movie? You know, where the guy gets injured in the train, and you know, she'd been Googling him forever as a ticket taker." Mm-hmm. And you know, the family's dead set that he's like married, engaged to her. Like the family, whoever this David S. guy was, I kind of wondered even if his last name was Head, and she changed it to her, you know, her fake name to his name.
Yeah,
I was like, how do you get a lawyer to do that for you?
Yeah.
Well, and the evil part of it, she pushes legitimate people out. You know, the guy that started the World Trade Survivors group, she pushes him out.
Oh,
just
yeah.
Because she has to be in charge. Like, what is that about? Why can't you just be... That made me think it was evil. Like, some evil...
Yeah, she had issues on all types of levels.
The crazy thing is she got no benefit out of it other than, you know, like she's...
Correct.
Like she's a vampire off of their pain or something, because that's all she got. She didn't get any money, anything out of it, except for she got to be a part of it, which is it's just so strange, so bizarre.
The attention.
The attention.
Yeah.
But even down to her dog, like that gal towards the end, who's like, "Do you have an effing dog?" Shoot, you know, it's like lying about everything. Like, it's Wednesday.
Everything.
No. Today's not Wednesday. Yes, it is.
Yeah, and she had those guys so bamboozled that even the one guy, he's like, maybe she is one of these people that just lies about everything, but he still kept Google searching her and trying to find her story because he believed her completely. It's amazing.
But
there are no photos.
The one thing that kind of broke the case or broke the story was the New Yorker reporter that started just basically like just about stalking her, with constantly berating her with questions and knocking on her door and questioning her, you know, and doing all of his investigative, you know, searching and stuff and finding more about her and stuff. And then, so I was glad. I mean, how long could she have gone on with this if he hadn't done his job? Yeah.
The thing is, though, like, her story doesn't hold any weight. Like, just the sniff test alone on it, you're like, this is really far-fetched. Yeah. You know,
but so many people bought it for so long.
Yeah, but that was just, they were too close to it, I think is what it is. Because, you know, I have zero training on interview skills, and I sat that back and went, there's too much that smells off in this story. You know what I mean?
She didn't shed a single tear in that whole movie.
Yeah. I mean, there's too many things that just weren't right.
Yeah. And it was, I don't know, I was impressed. You know, I really wanted to know towards the end and what they did. I was glad they did it when they went back to Spain, I think it was. And, you know, she did lose her arm and then get it sewn back on. And, you know, I thought it was interesting how they put tidbits out there. Like in the beginning, they put the tidbit out there
about the arm. Yep.
About the arm, and the burn it looked like a small skin graft that, you know, didn't look like a burn. And then she changes her story to say her arm is hanging by a piece of skin and the guy's trying to rip it off basically, and she's screaming at him. Yeah. And then, you know, you find out later that she got in a car accident and legitimately did lose her arm, so she had a matching scar. She probably did sit in the hospital for a while back then, but not in America.
Yeah, no medical records, none of that.
Yeah, she wouldn't say anybody's name except the random made-up guy that was famous, Mr. Red Bandana Crowder. who was a legitimate hero. I read some stuff about him, and he was a legit, like he was a volunteer fireman in his previous, years, and he was found. They have several names of folks that recognized him later, either knew him at the time that he got out, and he was found dead in the very lobby of the tower he was in amongst a bunch of firemen, and he really had no major injuries causing death. Basically, he was crushed. They were in there getting ready to get more people out, and he was doing his job. I thought that was pretty cool. They showed he became an honorary fireman, NYFD fireman. And she screwed, and now she's forever tied into his funeral. She spoke at it. She's recorded at it, or her friend did.
How disgraceful. I mean, what do you feel like as one of those friends when it's finally revealed that the whole thing was a complete, utter scam?
Well, especially Linda, her, bosom buddy.
Oh, yeah. Her bestest. I mean, how gullible do you feel? And
oh, yeah, you feel like a total, chump. It's terrible.
Yeah, I still honestly, until the very end, believed, okay, she worked for one of these companies or worked in the tower and wasn't there, but she's totally lying. Because I'm like, come on, she says she works for Merrill Lynch. That's easy to check. Yes, they're a big company, but they have a list of their employees. Why wasn't that the first thing that, she'd go to the Merrill Lynch reunion? And, obviously everybody knows who she is, but so they didn't bring that up. So I was like, okay, she must have really just, not been there that day, and maybe she's embellishing it that she was.
You would think at least the guy that got booted from his own foundation would have started digging, right?
Right.
If she gets me kicked off the board, I'm going to start digging, see if I find out something about this lady.
Right. Yeah. But that's the thing, though, is these are organizations that are set up for victims, or people directly associated to this massive event and have a lot of emotions tied into it and stuff. And it's just as him getting kicked out, and I agree. Yeah, you want to be kind of vindictive and get back and search on her, but at the same time, it's just for the better of the organization, and what will it end up doing to the organization and everybody that's associated to it. But then again, it's she's a fraud. So if you do reveal this of her, then you're probably saving these victims and people that are using this association for comfort and support and stuff. So, oh man, it's such a knot of things going on there.
One thing I thought, the fraudulency, how many people did something like this, or if there was anybody that faked their own death. So when I was doing a little research, it shows Crowder, it shows Beamer that was on Flight 93. They have Wikipedia pages, and it just says killed in the building collapse attack at 9/11, September of 2011. And I wonder how many people use that. It would be easy. You didn't find remains for a lot of those people.
Oh yeah.
To just fake your own death, fake somebody's death, and just take over a new identity and work it in that you were in the tower and fill out the paperwork you're your own cousin or something,
Right.
And that guy died. I wonder how much fraud has come of this, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm sure there's plenty, unfortunately, yeah.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah. I did have the thought at one point during this that, she didn't actually hurt anyone. Is even though her story
her
was
friends.
Well, yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day, if her story was completely fake, and this is a little devil's advocate before you guys attack me, did it really hurt? What if she did good? Maybe not this lady, but what if it was completely made up and she still managed to make a foundation that helped 100,000 people or whatever? Would it still be an evil thing? In her case, it's pretty evil still, I think. Because she kind of took over the board and she kind of, she really manipulated the thing to get her own fame out of it.
Right.
But I did have the thought: is it really such a terrible thing? And we were about halfway through the movie at this point when I thought that. So towards the end, she's a terrible person, obviously. But,
right. Well, screw you, Sean, for presenting that question. How do you respond to that?
I mean, I think if she had come forward with that being her motive, like, yes, okay, I made this up, but I really think these people need to be, represented and taken care of and treated with a certain level of respect and dignity. And I just wanted to be, able to do that for them. But she didn't. Like, she revealed her true colors, and it almost degrades the organization because it shows that they're not checking out their people. And who knows how, if there's one and she's the president, how many other people are in this survivors group that weren't even in the United States either. So I think it was the way she handled it afterwards showed all the good she did. I don't think benefited or made it okay at all.
Yeah, she definitely undermined the organization. No question.
So the big reveal at the end, after it's all said and done, she disappears when she gets ousted. And so how long was she gone for after she disappeared?
Was that 2014 or 2012?
It was like a couple of years, I thought.
I thought it was it was a couple of years because it was the 6th anniversary was right before she got outed. It was right before the 6th anniversary when she got outed. And I want to say it was right after the 10th anniversary was when they spotted her.
Yeah.
Oh, so like 3 or 4 years?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was fantastic when they found her, though.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't it? I was like, no way. She's still in town even.
The way they shot it and everything, and they didn't even try and
oh no,
stabilize the image or anything. It was just clearly an iPhone shot of this guy. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. That was really shocking to me. I was like, no way they found her. That's crazy. Yeah. So yeah, make sure you watch this all the way to the end. You'll have a nice little treat.
Yeah. No matter how much you hate this lady as you're watching it, it's worth watching to the end.
Yeah. So the one thing I found out in looking her up, she went back to Spain after that, and in 2012 she briefly was employed at an insurance company, and then they found out about this movie. I think the movie hit, and they fired her. So yeah, I don't know, who knows where she is now.
Yeah, I like that she was on holiday. It was a holiday break in Barcelona.
Yeah.
When the whole thing happened. So she was on vacation, and since she decided to make up this whole story.
Well, and then them showing her walk across the stage in June 2002.
Right.
Getting her diploma. I'm like, oh, snap. You are cooked and delivered right here. Wow. That's a hell of a recovery from an arm-severing burn.
So did you guys hear this story? They showed it all over the news, right, in the documentary.
Yeah.
I don't remember this.
I don't remember
this at all.
Nothing of it.
No. I thought it was interesting that Meredith Vieira is like one of the big names in producing it, because she was on The View, and I wondered why she was so interested in this. It's not very anti-woman versus The View's normal take.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So if it just angered her as maybe she's a New Yorker or something.
Yeah, maybe she got burned on this a little bit.
Maybe.
I had absolutely no memory of this ever being newsworthy or like on CNN or anything like they showed in the documentary. I was like, I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, I mean, she meets Giuliani and the governor.
Yeah.
I was like, let's toss in the president. She probably met Bush, right? Let's just put the cherry on top.
Oh, that would have been perfect.
Oh, poor good guy Bush. Oh, shucks.
Do you think that she ever had a thought in her mind that it had gone too far? Or is she just so mentally broken that...
Yeah, she's a megalomaniac. Yeah. No, she's a psycho. It never occurred to her.
Yeah, I think that she just was in panic mode at the end when she realized she was on the edge of being totally outed because she knew she couldn't stand up to a legit, investigatory interview.
Yeah. If that hadn't happened, she would have kept on going with it. There's nothing that would have stopped her.
Yeah. So one thing I did find out, there's a term for her problem. I guess you could say there's a medical term, because somebody posted about her, about how, she had these issues. And so the medical term and the diagnosis, I'm trying to pull it back up here. She was on Investigation Discovery.
Crazy bitchiatus.
It's called, see if I can get this right, pseudologia fantastica. It's defined as a syndrome where people represent certain fantasies as real occurrences, and is understood to be a rare but dramatic clinical psychiatric presentation. Pseudologia fantastica.
Mm-hmm.
She's nuts.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, she's clearly nuts.
Well, I'm glad it's a rare disease.
It was funny because I started watching this and my wife wasn't in, and she walked in and I'm like, "You got to watch this. This lady's crazy." I'm like, I gotta start it over. I gotta start it over because you got to see this. This is insane. So I watched it 1.5 times because
that's so funny. Because Jen was over at your house today and I texted her and I was like, "Hey, do you know if Sean started it?" And she's like, "Yeah, he started it, got like halfway through, and then like came in and said, Steph, you gotta watch this."
Yeah.
Just like, so she's like, "I don't know if they finished the movie or what, but yeah." Because she knew how crazy it was, because she'd already seen it.
Kind of harsh another way, not that she deserves much niceties, but we're watching it and then they keep showing the guy in the cartoon pictures, so critique wise, I like their cartooning.
Yes.
To provide pictures because the pictures didn't exist.
The animation was great.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And they're showing her, she's so heavy. She's huge.
Yeah.
And the pictures of him is he's, tall, dark, and handsome. And I'm like, okay, there's something wrong with that right there, honey. Like, I'm sorry.
Right.
Harsh as I am, superficial as it may sound.
Right.
How is she bagging this guy? Yeah, opposites attract, Mike Keister.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not buying that. And my wife looks at me and says something effective. I bet she's gained a lot of weight since then.
Mm-hmm.
Right. No, she did not.
Since they colored that cartoon, clearly.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, she's like, she's probably a lot thinner when 9/11 happened. Okay. Eating her feelings. Okay. Yeah. She was trying to be really nice. She was still giving her the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. That whole story was just, I was like, what romance novel did you pull this out of?
Yeah.
When she was talking about her meeting him and them being opposites and complete opposites, but they're a perfect match for each other. It's just like, oh my gosh, dude, you're making me sick.
She can fabricate a story, though. You like that? We met because he stole my cab.
Oh, yeah.
And then
every year
we go to Hawaii and
Maui.
Four Polynesian warriors walk me down to the beach. And wow, what a
taking my measurements and how to dress.
Yeah. Everybody knows that you don't buy dresses for your wife. I don't care how good she looks. You don't buy dresses for your wife.
Well, my thought was, I ain't spending that kind of money if I ain't getting a ring out of it. Like, are you serious? I have to do this again to get the legit wedding on? Are you kidding me?
Right. Yeah, he had enough time to plan to get a wedding dress made for her, but not get a wedding ring done or get the actual marriage certificate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That takes forever.
Yeah. Yeah, the 3 days in Hawaii to get your marriage certificate done.
Well,
yeah.
Oh. Well, it's definitely a frustrating but entertaining one as well too.
Yeah, I actually would give this a recommend.
Yeah.
Because it is frustrating and a little crazy, but it is an interesting documentary for sure.
I was hoping Eric was going to be able to join us for that one documentary, because he just gets so pissed off about things like this.
I would have loved to hear his response for sure. You should get him to watch it anyway. He said cameo.
Yeah, he said he's going to watch it tomorrow. I was like, man, I really wish you could have gotten on and watched this one. He's like, I'll check it out tonight or tomorrow. And I was like, I hope you do, but you're going to be pissed, dude.
Yeah. Have him do a drop in. You can just have him record something to drop into here that we can throw onto this podcast.
And after hours recording for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, for our listeners, if you want to check this one out, check it out on Docurama. One really cool way to find Docurama, like I kind of mentioned to the guys earlier, is on Tubi. There's an app called Tubi, and Tubi, and I downloaded it onto my iPhone and then also onto my Apple TV, and I'm sure you can do it on any Droid as well too. But Tubi gives you free access to tons of movies, tons of television, and tons of documentaries, a lot of documentaries. But if once you open up Tubi, go to the browse button, there should be a browse button, and in that browse list, there will be a tab for Docurama, and click on Docurama and you'll be able to find this, or actually just search The Woman Who Was Not There in the Tubi search engine or on your Docurama, and it'll bring it up. But this was definitely a fun documentary that was different from your typical 9/11. I'm glad all three of us picked a quite different approach to 9/11. I think that was really cool, that we've all brought a different approach of from the soldier to the kids to the crazy lunatic. Thanks again, guys, for joining me this evening for this special edition of 9/11.
Thank you.
Talks on Docs is a community podcast, meaning we want to get to know you and to talk to you, the listeners. But to make that happen, we need you to first contact us. Please feel free to email us at talksondocs@gmail.com, or if you prefer, contact us on Facebook at Talks on Docs or on Twitter at Talks on Docs.
Beautiful day in this neighborhood, beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be